weird.
The magic of the lab coat. That's always...
Yeah.
I actually think it has everything to do with confidence. Now, this is my own brand of, like, this is how I've sailed through my life, is confidence. My dad told me really early on, when I was a little kid, I was little and doing shows in front of everybody, so I really wasn't lacking in confidence, of course. But he told me, even if you don't know what you're doing, act like you know what you're doing. People will immediately think that you do. And I was like, really? And he was like, yeah, just go everything with confidence, act like you're supposed to be there. It'll always work. And 100% of the time, it has. And I've built my entire life on it. This idea that it's like, yeah, I'm fine. And people are like, she's fine. And, or like, you guys should hug each other. And they're like, we're going to hug. I'm like, great. Like, it's just this, like, the power of confidence because, like, 90% of people don't have it. And I realize that, and I only realize because I've immersed myself so intensely into theater people, because theater people wear their insecurities on their sleeve, right? So they'll tell you the first minute they've met you all the things that they have issues with as far as communicating, especially when you're the teacher of a class where you're like, hi, I'm going to teach you how to communicate with each other. And then they go, okay, let me tell you how I'm bad at it. And you're like, great, tell me. I want to know. But everybody's thing is the exact same. You know, everybody's question or, like, issue or, like, rabbit hole is the same. So I'm like, you're fine. Everything's going to be fine. Just do it, and then at the end, you'll be done, because you'll have done it. Like, and I really just think, because, again, I've taught so many performers who are like you, who are like, no, if I just tell you you're confident, and you're like, oh, wait, I am, and then you are. I've had, actors go out on stage and then it's like, yeah, I just informed them who they were and they were like, oh, right, I am. And then they did it.
Right.
But then there's a bunch of people who just sort of sail in that are like, I would like a one-off. Well, they only take a level 1 and they like hang around for a little bit, or they learn how to do a speech and they go back to being whatever it is that they have in their life. And a lot of those people, like, they're just kind of nervous about their whole lives. And I'm like, you're a doctor, you're a travel agent. You talk to people all the time. You have authority in whatever it is you do, but they don't feel it. So I think your skill, and certainly in the fact that even in this time that Patrick and I have gotten to enjoy you regaling us with your wonderful stories, you like make people interested in your journey. You're like, yeah, okay, tell me about that. Like literally anything you have to tell us about. Like I'm like trying to remember, like, don't forget to ask him about this, but I'm still like, yeah, I mean, what else happened? That was so great. And then it's like, dude, this was a 3-hour. Patrick, what are we doing? It's tomorrow. Like
I'm late for work. I gotta go.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? So a lot of people, and because you have it, you don't notice that other people don't have it. But like, and the only reason why I know other people don't have it is because I teach people specifically to find it. So that's why it's like there's just a spark, and people who have confidence can convince other people to do stuff. Some people use it for good, and some people use it for evil.
I think I made that, like, I understood that was a thing, and then I had some skill in it.
Yeah, you're great.
And my mom was a salesperson, and I watched the slow corruption of her, I'm going to do good, and I'm going to sell things that are right and help people, to, hey, quarterly earnings are down. I'm gonna hit this button. I gotta make this amount.
It's hard,
right? And I said I'm never doing that. I just never. So I did. I think what you do. I put in for Dell, and I put in with the state, and I said I know how to work on computers, because all my friends were nerds, and I had started to study physics, so I had some computing stuff. Right. And sure enough, Dell called me back, and they gave me the same offer the state did. And I'm like, listen, the state's offering the same thing with more holidays and less stress.
Right.
If you can offer me a nickel more, I can justify coming to work for you. And they said no.
State it is. Yeah.
So I went to work for the state. And
you're welcome.
I still have my soul, so I'm kind of happy about that. But I did do a lot of help desk work for, I guess, first phone support, then help desk support. And then I got pulled up into, like, policy, and because somebody said, hey, he's got a master's, right? On the help desk, they said that, and so they pulled me up.
And paper.
And I started doing project management in no time. Like within the first 2 years of my life, I just started doing that in my career. I didn't think another thing about art. Didn't think about speech. I had done some speeches for candidates, but it was over. That my wife didn't like politics. She didn't like the evening news. Wasn't allowed to watch it when she was home. So I just kind of
a little difficult.
You can't be a political operative and not keep up with everything that's going on and listen to the arguments. So
you weren't allowed to watch it when you went home. In my mind, I thought you were telling us that when she was a child, she wasn't allowed to watch it. Like her parents were like, "This doesn't exist." She was like, "Okay."
Would have been better probably for all of us.
Well, you know that thing that people talk about when you get married? There's something that changes a little bit about the person.
I've heard that, but I
you haven't encountered it yet?
I haven't. I've only been married, I guess, a couple of years, so we're pretty much the same. People always tell us that, and I always look at it and I'm like, what do you do now? I don't know.
I already dated myself, right? So I would come home and turn on the McNeil-Lehrer report, right? I'd get home with time to watch this, and I'd be very excited. And we got married, and she said, I don't want that on in the house anymore. Oof. And she didn't put any other roadblocks to anything else up, right? She was totally cool with everything else, but that was like her thing. She was like, that, you yell at the TV a lot, and I don't like it. I was like, okay. Yeah. So I turned it off. And I went about my day, right? We adopted a daughter through Child Protective Services, which is one of the primary reasons I went to work for the state, was I wanted to help. We adopted a daughter. We bought a house. We did this thing, right? We started going to church as not just participants, but like we wanted to do
be
stuff
part of the foundation
with. Yeah. And we wanted a place for our daughter to have a safe place. So we just started doing these things, right? And one day I decided I wanted to lead a Sunday school class, which is kind of insane because I really had no religious foundation. I had grown up Catholic most of my life and never participated. I got molested as a kid, so I never thought I could take communion because the Catholic Church is pretty big about homosexuality and they're pretty big about, sex outside of marriage. So I just thought I was ruled out from ever taking communion. And some Methodist minister I got literally drawn into a meal on a Sunday afternoon, and he convinced me to take my first communion at a Methodist church. And that was it. I was like, oh, you guys let me hear? Oh, I'm in. Yeah. Right? That was it. And so we're at this Methodist church, and I'm teaching Sunday school. And at first, I was dutiful. Like, they had a syllabus, and I was on it. And at some point, I didn't prepare right. Like, I prepared for the wrong lesson. And it came in, and we had this great class. And I didn't know it was improv that I was doing. Right? I didn't know that's what this was. We were just all coming together, and we were talking, and then I related it to what we were supposed to be talking about, but I didn't do it till the end. And the kids were all like, oh, you suckered us in. We thought we were talking about today's headlines, and now we're talking about this thing about Job. You jerk. And then they brought their friends. And then more kept coming, and we're like, what is this thing that's happening? And so I did that for 13 years.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
My daughter got a good education through the church. She got a good set of relationships and foundation from the church. We were very happy with super liberal. There were no rules of what you had to believe to be in this church.
Where is this at this point?
University United Methodists here in Austin.
Oh, great.
Right on the drag. And so I'm ecstatic. My daughter doesn't quite make it out of her teens before she has a severe mental breakdown. And she still lives on the street, but we got to the point where we had to put her in an institution. So I'm 48 years old at this point. I've led a pretty good life. I've been a good man, right? But every therapist I'm talking to, because I'm putting my daughter in a mental institution, says, you have to do something for you. You can't just go to work and be a project manager and play Ultimate, right? Those can't be your two things. You have to do something for you. And I'm like, well, what do I do? Take a class. Take anything. Do something with your life. So my friend Todd, who plays Ultimate with me, was taking an improv class at the Hideout. And so I literally flew to Michigan, dropped my daughter in this institution, drove away, thought I was going to die. I thought my heart was just going to rip apart. I get on an airplane, I fly home, and that week I take my first improv class.
Wow.
So I was already ready for I needed something. Yeah. Like in the middle of the ocean all by myself, and I see this life raft, and it is called improv, and I just jump. And I must have been in it three or 4 months. And I'm sitting at a table, and all the kids are talking about what they want to do with improv. You know, they want to be on SNL. They want to produce a show. They want to direct a show. They want to be famous. They want to be on. And I'm just listening to them. And finally, they look at me and they go, "What do you want to do?" And I go, "I want to stand on a street corner and hold a sign that says free hugs." And they lose it. They think that's the funniest thing. They're like, "No, really, what do you?" And I start crying. I'm like, "No, that's, I'd like to do that." And Gloria Rebel Bankler, who I perform with in our prime, and Cindy Ward are at the table, and they're like, "Okay, hold on, time out. You can do that tomorrow. All you need." And Cindy's like, "I'll make the sign." Gloria's like, "I'll be your first hug. We're going to make this out." And I'm like, "Okay, I'm not ready emotionally to do this tomorrow, but maybe." So we set a date, and we do it. And Gloria is my first hug. People make signs. My daughter made me a sign, and she said, so I go out on the street corner and do free hugs, and I am fulfilled. Like, for the first hour, nothing happens. People just stare at me like I'm crazy. Yeah. And then somebody gave me a hug. And at some point, I had to go to the bathroom, and Gloria is sitting in her car still watching. So she takes the sign and holds the sign while I go pee. And it just took, and 5 years in, I did it for 5 straight years. And people were coming out, improvisers, just people. Mostly improvisers to start, but then just people who heard about it and wanted to come out and participate. And so I have this bunch of signs and everything. But Tim Coyle, who's from the Hideout, he calls me one day and he says, "Listen, I got us a free fringe to do Free Hug Day as a free fringe over at the Hideout on a Thursday night. Can you be there at 10? I'm like, "Yeah, all right, fine." I'm kind of burned out at the idea of talking about hugging at this point, right? I mean, So, and we've already done a couple of these shows, so I'm like, this is okay. But I look at the thing the night of, and it says Paul Normandin's Free Hug Day, and I'm like, well, shit, I can't back out of it. It's got my name on it, right? Because I was gonna bail.
They printed it.
I know. So
that's how they got you there.
So they literally So I come in the door. I'm completely dumb, right? Like, we've already established how much of an awkward idiot I can be with the girls in the rape. Right. This is not out of character.
We should
pretend
rename that story.
By the way, next time you tell that story, don't call it the girls in the rape.
Yeah, just the girls in the college, probably.
Probably way better.
I understand your wife didn't even want you to use the word in the story, but you can use it in the story. Just don't title it The Girls in the Rape.
We found our edit point for the show.
So we'll go ahead and call it something else. But yes,
it's fine.
I've established how stupid I can be in these moments of awkwardness.
Okay.
And so I get there, and I notice, if you've ever been to a free fringe, there's people there who would go to a free show at 10 o'clock. So it's either new students, right? It's either new students or people who have a vested interest, or they want to see something, or they didn't have no money for their date, right? That's where the place is packed. I know everybody in the house, and I literally start thinking in my head, what else is on the card tonight that got this draw? There must be something really cool happening later on. So, and I get on stage and I try to do some scene work. Like, the show starts and I try to do some scene work, and somebody from the audience gets up and runs onto the stage and gives me a hug, and I'm like, this is so messed up right now. You're messing up, like, I'm trying to do scene work here. And so they sat down and somebody else came and did it. And at some point I see these two people I don't recognize, and it's the Hideout. I know everybody in the room at this point, but I don't recognize these two people who are walking in. And one guy's got a box and an envelope, and the woman behind him has another envelope. I'm like, what the hell is going on? And Tim stops the show, and he says, turns out this is not a show. This flag flew over the house on the last Free Hug Day, and we have a proclamation from the House, and some guy from the House of Representatives reads the proclamation. So I am on the verge of tears, because they're celebrating 5 years of Free Hug Day in Austin, and I'm like, how did they even know this exists, right? Like, and then a woman from the city council gets up, and she's got a signed proclamation from the city council and the mayor. And I lose it. I'm just like, I am just crying, and all my friends are loving this shit, right? They're like, oh yeah, look, Paul's crying, this is great. And I'm just like, yeah, exactly. I'm just tearing, and they're all here to see me cry, and I'm like, you assholes. we could have made something with onions, and we could have done this without an